Okay, 4 bets for weekend for a 200 to 1 4-timer. And we start in League One with Accrington against Oxford. You can get 12 to 5 about Accrington. I think that's a decent price. Oxford, for me, not consistent or not reliable enough to be trusted at short prices away from home. They went a long way into last season before they picked up the first away win. This season they've not been convincing, but fresh in mind right now, real recency bias about them. The 6-0 away win at Lincoln really grabbed the attention. Beat West Ham 4-0 in the Carabao Cup. You're looking at 4 or 5 clean sheets in all competitions. But, the consistency's never really been there with Carl Robinson teams. Always pleasing on the eye, always good to watch, and, like to knock the ball about, like to have the ball and control games. And opposition managers are speaking very well about them. In victory or defeat, opposition managers are coming out and saying, yep, they're a decent side. You get the impression they're a top half side pushing on for top 6. But there's this inconsistent streak about them. You just don't know what you're really getting from 1 week to the next, and especially away from home. They're a bottom half team in terms of their XG ratio. Accrington are a top half team in terms of their home XG ratio. And I think Accrington have had some bad breaks. I don't think they've had the results they deserve at home. They were scuppered by a stoppage time equaliser at home to Blackpool in the last home game. They've just come out of a patch where 4 or 5 games they had either Seamus Keneally or Sean McConville suspended, or both. Both those players picked up red cards and were out for a while, and those are 2 big players to be missing out of their midfield. They've got those back now. You take their XG overall over the course of the season to date, you're looking at a pretty much bang mid-table side, which is, is decent enough. It's not. It's much greater than the reputation that Accrington have, as an unfashionable club that's expected to be involved in a relegation battle. They're much better than that, and I think 12 to 5 at home is more than fair. Moving into League 2, the remaining 3 legs of this 4-timer are all in League 2, and I'll start with Stevenage away at Colchester. Now, Stevenage are under new management under Mark Sampson. And I think they might be about to benefit from a little bit of continuity. We have to say this is really speculative as a bet. We're talking about the bottom team in the division, still winless after 11-12 matches. Bottom of the table and really not much going for them at all. Dino Manri was sacked about 4 games ago. I do get the impression he was almost played some part in that exit, that it was a bit more mutual consent. He was happy for the dismissal to come about. I think he knew, he realised quite early on he was never going to live up to last season's expectations of 70 points with a team that is essentially working to a bottom 6 budget. They've not had a good summer. They've had a lot of injuries in the summer, weren't really prepared for the season as well as they might have been. Manri, being the type of manager he is, has experimented with formations, played about 3 or 4 different systems, was chopping and changing personnel, some of it enforced, some of it is their own decision, trying to find the right formula. And in the end, he's ended up taking it to breaking point and he's gone. Now Sampson steps up from the assistant manager's role. Now he seems to have a clear idea that he wants to stick to. He's going to make them tough to beat, really difficult to break down. He's sticking with his formation, and they're basically setting themselves up to be an unders team. They drew 0-0 away with Forest Green in the last away game. Can easily nick these games. When the onus is on the home side to force the issue, then there's always a possibility when you're a lower side, if you set your stall out right, that you can just nick a goal. And we're talking big prices. We're talking 100 to 37 to 2 here for Stevenage to win this game. Colchester, for me, have they're basically they're projected. They're currently 9th in the table, and that sits right with the last few seasons under John McGreal. They finished 8th, 13th, and 8th. So that's the kind of ballpark they're in from season to season. Is just outside the playoffs. But their XG data so far this season is not good at all. They're about 4th, 5th from bottom overall XG ratio. But it's kind of being masked by the fact that they've got this Carabao Cup run. They've beaten Crystal Palace and Tottenham Hotspur on penalties. Both games they've played out a 0-0 over the 90, taken it to penalties and won on the shootout. So there's potential for a bit of a distraction from this Carabao Cup run. I think more than anything, though, I just think their data's not as good as the results have been, and I am a little bit concerned that they're not a team that copes necessarily well with an emotional roller coaster. The type of manager that John McGreal is, I think they've not had too many lows yet this season, but it was a feature last season that John McGreal, his narrative in his press conferences afterwards, riding the wave of highs and lows. He was either really up 1 minute, really down the next minute, and I just think it all kind of takes its toll. You know, I think it becomes mental in the end. You know, like the loss of mental energy, I think it carries over onto the pitch, and you know, they basically got less to give as the season goes on, and I just think that they've had a heavy schedule lately. They are an unders team. They do rely quite heavily on scoring the first goal and getting ahead in the game. I think if this game goes deep into the second half as a really tight affair, I think there might be something in it for Stevenage. I also think another point of order is that Stevenage haven't scored a goal from a set piece yet this season. Yet their XG in terms of from set plays is, you know, they should be on about 3 or 4 goals already this season because they're projecting quite well on that score. So big price for me. I don't think Colchester are stick-ons by any stretch of the imagination. So that takes us on to Grimsby against Mansfield. Grimsby, talking of set plays, is no bigger set play team in League 2 at the moment. They scored 8 goals from set plays. That's not coincidence. They're projecting 6.5 to 7 goals worth of XG in set piece situations. And they were 3-1 winners away at top of the table Exeter last weekend, having rested players, and I think kidded the market a little bit. They came off the back of that 7-1 defeat at Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. And when Michael Jolly made all those changes, it was thought that basically, you know, he had put more emphasis on the Chelsea game and was writing off the Exeter game. Jolly's not a manager to kid on though, and afterwards he was quite adamant that the Exeter game was always the priority, more so than the Chelsea game. And I'm inclined to believe him when he says that, because he's not one for playing games. He always plays everything straight down the line. And yeah, I mean, the result speaks for itself. Going to Exeter and winning 3-1 shows they can beat any team in the division. Now Mansfield will expect to be, you know, in amongst that company at the top of the table, but this season they're just not. There's a bit of a playoff hangover there potentially. You know, they're not showing the best of themselves to date. Their XG ratio is 46%. I mean, we're talking about a team that last season was consistently operating at a 60% XG ratio. 46% XG ratio now. John Dempster's talking as though, you know, there's been some big turnaround in the last few matches. He might be right in terms of, you know, the general feeling of the build-up play and what they're doing in the middle third of the pitch. But in terms of the performance data, I'm not seeing much change at all. And I do worry about Dempster as a first-time manager now, because it's not been the start that he wanted or he would have wanted. My concern is that he's more of a motivator, he's more of a people person and organising people and you know, making sure that the dressing room's needs are catered of and the collective identity of the players. Not so much about the football. I don't think he's an innovator tactically. I don't think he'll have the answers from a football sense. I mean, even in the summer himself, he brought in Lee Glover as his attacking coach because his knowledge was primarily on the defensive side of the game. You know, I don't think we're talking about a top class tactician here, and I think what Mansfield need right now is not more, because I don't think there's any question that Mansfield's effort's been there in recent games, so I don't think you can really double down on the effort and motivation side and expect better performances, and working hard on the training ground seemed to be his answer last week. I don't think that's the answer. I think they need a football answer. They need a tactical solution at the moment, and I don't think that guidance for the players is necessarily coming, which is what they need right now. So I'm more than happy to take Mansfield on. I think each of two, when Grimsby have got home advantage and the standards they've set so far this season, you know, they're in the top 7 on merit at the moment, and they're projecting as a top 7 team. So for me, 15-8 about the home win is an excellent price. All of which leaves just one more, and that's I'm going to play Scunthorpe away at Plymouth. I think there's a big price about Scunthorpe. I think there's been a marked improvement in recent weeks. I think they started the season very, very poorly under Paul Hurst. It did look like he was in real danger of losing his job before he even got started. But they seem to have toughed it out a little bit, and his identity is beginning to come through now. I think a lot of the defeats early in the season, you know, they've conceded 7 goals from set plays, they've been caught on the counter-attack 3 times. Now anyone who knows a Paul Hurst team will use Shrewsbury in League One as the main reference point. knows that that's very unlike a Paul Hurst team to get done on those kinds of goals. And I think we're beginning to see in Scunthorpe now some of the traits of a successful Paul Hurst team. You know, it's going to be a slow burner of the season. They're right down at the bottom at the moment, and I think even a push for the playoffs would be seen as a success now in the context of that start. But I do think recent performances have been solid enough to suggest that they're going to be competitive with the team that they were relegated alongside at the end of last season. If you remember the final day of the League One season, it was Plymouth against Scunthorpe, a game that was shrouded in controversy. I think it was a 2-2 draw and both teams ended up relegated. You know, it was billed as a final day decider that, you know, one of them had to win. As it turns out, they both drew, they were both going down anyway. But to now be getting over 3-1, nearly 4-1 about the away win, you know, Plymouth for me, I think, like Bury last season under Ryan Lowe, I think they're going to be better in the second half of the season than they will be in the first half. I think Ryan Lowe's very much a philosophy manager into, you know, reinforcing the same identity over and over and over of the way he wants his team to play and attack teams. It's mostly about what happens at the top end of the pitch, and I think that kind of attacking cohesion takes a little while to foster. I don't think that just comes overnight, even though he has taken quite a few Bury players with him. That might make the process speed up a little bit, but on the evidence so far, he was proud last weekend about digging out a 1-0 away win at Mansfield. That they kind of changed. You know, they weren't free-flowing Plymouth, the sort of Plymouth side we'd like to see, but Ryan Lowe was quick to say, you know, you need different types of qualities over the course of a season if you're going to get promotion, and he was really proud to see that gutsy fighting quality from his Plymouth team last weekend. But at home, I think there's a pressure on them to play a certain way because of what Lowe's promised in the summer and what he's emphasised all along, that he wants his, you know, he wants his teams to excite in the attacking third. But I think in Plymouth's home games to date, it was a comfortable 3-0 win over Walsall, but that aside, I think it's been a grind. I think they were lucky to beat Colchester 1-0 early in the season. They've had 2-2 draw with Holden, 2-2 draw with Salford City. I mean, these are not great results. You know, I just think they're feeling the pressure a little bit at home, and I do think they're going to get stronger as the season goes on, and their long-term credentials might be stronger than Scunthorpe, but right now I'm quite happy to take Scunthorpe to win there.